After the war with Yegu, the United Soils of Foug gained new Western territories. The government wanted full control of the region and enforced strict land ownership laws in 1848. Anyone living on unclaimed land was arrested and forced into labor in state-run mines. The small parcels of land the government allowed settlers to buy were barren, expensive, and deliberately made worthless. Many veterans of the Yegu War felt betrayed. They had fought, believing they would receive land and opportunity. Yet what they got was nothing. Over time, these veterans drifted into the frontier as gangs and outlaw camps. They shared the same grievance, that Foug had used them, then discarded them. In 1854, one of these veteran gangs captured an abandoned military fort. When Foug finally responded months later, every defender was killed. To other veterans, this looked less like punishment and more like the government murdering men who had simply claimed the land they were promised. Tension boiled. Veterans sabotaged mines, rail lines, and government posts. The frontier slowly slipped out of Foug's control. In the capital city of Laramie, Yapcota, 1858, the veterans united with civilians and removed Foug officials overnight without a single casualty. Following the election of gerrymandering in 1857, who declared these bands of veterans were against the Soils, a new government was declared, the Confederacy of Free Soils, promising land ownership to all who fought for it. Veteran leaders met and formed an army. Filibuster, a celebrated war hero turned outlaw, was chosen as president. Civilians called the new nation Philly Land or Buster's Land, but the veterans insisted on its formal name, the Confederacy of Free Soils. At first, the Confederacy thrived. Their army was relatively large and began pushing east. Foug sent reinforcements, but their troops were unaccustomed to the terrain. Confederate forces dug tunnel networks called ant hills and specialized in ambush warfare. The Confederacy's elite unit, the Green Grasshopper Mountaineers under General Marion Wiggs, won their first major victory at Gophers Peak, devastating the trapped Foug column and inspiring more to join the cause. By mid-1859, the Confederacy was still winning skirmishes, but its strength was stretched thin across the open country. President Filibuster recalled the Green Grasshopper Mountaineers from their defensive positions, believing they were needed elsewhere, and ordered General Adam Grease and the Army of the Boo 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 to take one such position, Lemmy Hill. Coincidentally, President gerrymandering had planned an offensive on Lemmy Hill. Still believing he would be facing the Green Grasshopper Mountaineers, he put as many men as he reasonably could into the offensive. At Lemmy Hill, Grease faced General Liver Fever and the Foug 3rd North Seymour Army. Fever had 10,000 equal to Grease's 3,000. Grease held the ridge for as long as he could, but when Foug reinforcements arrived, Grease knew he had to retreat. Lemmy Hill fell, and with it, the gateway into the Western Territories. This was the first major strategic victory for Foug, and it shifted the momentum of the war. With Lemmy Hill secured, Foug could move troops, artillery, and supplies through land the Confederacy had once held. In 1860, the Confederacy suffered another devastating loss. At Teepee Ridge, General Wiggs was killed by a Foug sharpshooter. The Green Grasshopper Mountaineers continued fighting, but eventually had to retreat. After the death of Wiggs and the loss of Lemmy Hill along with Teepee Ridge, the Confederacy entered a slow decline. Supplies grew scarce, and the optimism that had carried the early months of the war drained away. Morale collapsed as veterans, who formed the backbone of the Confederacy's armies, were killed faster than they could ever be replaced. Foug, on the other hand, could always send more men west. Every life the Confederacy lost was a life they could not afford to lose. By 1861, the stress of the war began to tear the Confederacy apart from within. General Adam Grease was shot and killed in a drunken argument with General Tim Swaggy, an act that ignited unrest throughout the ranks. When word of Grease's death reached the army of the Boo 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 Boo, the soldiers mutinied, refusing to follow the command of those they now saw as either incompetent or treacherous. Swaggy was imprisoned, but later released and put back into the army, keeping his status as a general because everyone else was too much of a dumbass. The cavalry of the Labubu was nearly destroyed during a nighttime raid by a local tribe. Their leader, Squirmy Worm, was killed. General Thomas Onion replaced him and traveled back to Laramie to try to gather new recruits. At the same time, General Leeburn ordered the Green Grasshopper Mountaineers to launch a nighttime assault on Lemmy Hill to cripple Foog's strategic control of the route. The attack failed, resulting in heavy losses on both sides and leaving the Mountaineers badly weakened. Following this failure, Sergeant Tin Dallmer killed Leeburn in his sleep and took over command of the Mountaineers. This caused the regiment to split into Dallmer Loyalists and Leeburn Loyalists. The two groups fought each other, Dallmer's faction won, and the surviving Mountaineers withdrew toward Laramie. Around the same time, President Filibuster was found in his office with a gunshot wound to the head and a derringer in his hand. His death caused immediate political breakdown in the Confederacy. General Tim Swaggy and Dallmer clashed in Laramie shortly afterward for the presidency. Their forces fought inside the city for about a week. Thomas Onion sent a letter to Dallmer, acknowledging the fighting and giving his support, stating he would close in on Laramie to help, but did not, afraid to lose more men. Dallmer's smaller but more experienced force eventually defeated Swaggy's larger one. Swaggy was arrested and executed by firing squad. By late 1863, the Confederacy had few still active. Most had either grown a little too old to continue fighting, deserted, or returned to living in small gangs as they had before the war. There was an informal understanding among them not to fight each other anymore. Dallmer and the remaining Mountaineers left Laramie and crossed into Rolaka to avoid being hunted further. Weeks later, the Foog Navy sailed into Laramie and disembarked soldiers. There was no resistance. The city was silent, with most civilians staying indoors. The Confederacy, as a functioning government, no longer existed. The war was declared over. Foog stationed troops in Laramie for several years afterward to maintain control. Foog illegally crossed troops into Rolakan soil to hunt the remaining Mountaineers and ultimately was never able to eliminate them all as they kept moving further north.